You're listening to Inside Content, the TV industry podcast. This show is brought to you by 3Vision, a global TV industry consultancy specialising in content acquisition, strategy, research and business development. Each episode, we give you VIP access to the views and experiences of senior TV executives and discuss the latest TV industry trends and insights.
Hello and welcome to Inside Content. On this episode, I'm joined by Sky's Group Director of Acquisitions, Katie Keenan. In a wide-ranging discussion, we explore many topics, including the evolution of Sky's content acquisition strategy, the power of unscripted content, and movie windowing trends. So, hi Katie, thanks for joining us on Inside Content.
Hi Toby, thanks very much for having me.
So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Sky is obviously a global leader in pay television and has always had a very innovative content strategy. So I'm sure you're going to have many great insights to share with our listeners.
Sure. So I sit within the content team, work in Zai Bennett's content team, and my role as Group Director of Acquisitions is really to formulate and lead our strategic vision for buying, and really that's sourcing and acquiring content for all of Sky's content services. So that's our pay TV business, the free-to-air business that we have as well, and transactional, so Sky Store and Prima Filia that we have in Italy. And that's across the UK and across Europe as well, our European territories. And I guess key within that is the responsibility for really overseeing our relationships and deal execution for all content rights deals. So dealing with all of the US studios, but also the many, many other suppliers that we have, which is, into the hundreds. And I guess acquired content, has really powered Sky and was very much a USP of Sky's, best of the US, and the content that we pick up for the service is really important for adding value to our subscription service for our customers. And that very much now sits alongside an amazing slate of Sky original content as well. Recently we launched Tattooist, and after only a few days, it's our biggest Sky original since 2018. And we've got some great original content coming up over the next few weeks and months. We'll have Dare the Jackal with Eddie Redmayne, Colin Firth in Lockerbie. And the one thing, and it's amazing to be part of the Sky team. We'll be at the BAFTAs on Sunday, and we've had our biggest haul of nominations with 31 this year. So really, really proud.
Really? Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that includes, I think, five nominations for Succession and some nominations for Last of Us as well, but also 31 across the whole of the Sky content team. So yeah, really proud to be part of the team that's bringing so many well-loved and regarded programs to all of our customers. So yeah, it's a broad remit, and a fantastic team across the territories, and one that sees us buying content across multiple content services. And to our 23, I think we've got 23 million customers across Europe. So we're serving a lot of people.
We've got a lot of different people to keep happy there.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So obviously content acquisition as a activity has kind of been in quite a big flux over the last few years, as when, first off, when the global streamers like Netflix took like a really aggressive approach, and then we've had quite a few of the studios obviously launching their own services and holding content for those services. But now things are starting to turn again, and the studios are taking a more flexible approach. And I think especially the streets, those big streamers are taking a more flexible approach in some cases. How have those changes been impacting your strategy, and importantly, what do you see coming in the sort of imminent future?
Well, look, I think as you sort of the question that you posed does talk about the sort of the flux within the media sector over the last few years. It's been a really, really fascinating period. which has meant that, we've really had to think about the relationship with some of our suppliers and how that's evolved. But actually, a lot of the relationship we have with our suppliers has remained pretty constant as well. I guess more broadly, Sky, is the way that I guess our broader partnership works has evolved quite considerably in the last few years. So we're very much an aggregator of content. It's really important for us that the sort of ease for our customers in how we accelerate their ability to find the best content and the best content that our customers love, has seen us forge some really interesting relationships with the likes of Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon, and how all of those, the app deals that we have, and how they're embedded into our entertainment operating system that sits and powers Sky Glass and Sky Stream across our territories. So that part of the business has really evolved. And actually, you've alluded to the fact that some of the studios have launched their own streaming services. And I think it's interesting to think about our relationship with Paramount and how that's evolved over the last few years, because it really just shows, I guess, the sort of multifaceted relationship we have with Paramount Global. So back in 2022, we continued our partnership with Paramount licensing their movie content. And so we have all of their pay one titles alongside a big sort of library component. But that deal evolved and changed in that it was really important for Paramount. They wanted to launch Paramount Plus in our territories. And so we did a deal that saw us hard bundle Paramount Plus for all of our Sky Cinema customers. And so really those pay one titles, they're co-exclusive with the Paramount Plus service. And I guess how the relationship changed with Paramount is that we had a Showtime output deal with Paramount for many years. And what we didn't want our customers to lose that Showtime content. So, many of our customers who are Sky Cinema customers now have all of the Showtime content as part of the sort of bundle with Paramount Plus, which means there's real consistency in their ability for all those shows that they'd love, like Billions, and there's a Billions spin-off coming later this year, and the Yellowstone titles. We've really added incredible value to our Sky Cinema subscription by our customers now having access to a whole swathe of entertainment content, series, and kids content as well. So that's been a really kind of interesting change to how we've become even closer and really deepened our relationship with Paramount. And then when I guess the other thing is what some of the US studios have done is really broadened, I suppose, the relationship they have in our territories by buying production companies. So our relationship is even deepened in that a Sony company, Bad Wolf, we made I Hate Susie with. Something like Chernobyl was very much a co-production with HBO, and Tattooist, which I said had just recently launched, is also a co-production with Peacock. So our relationship with our studio partners is sort of widened and deepened. I think Sky is such an incredible platform to launch content, and we're, in terms of how our ability to market content and really be that sort of the first run home of content, I think is seen as really valued by our partners. I suppose talking about, say, our relationship with Disney. Again, we have a Disney Plus deal, and that's probably the relationship that's changed the most, in that we used to license a lot of content from Disney. We had a cinema output deal, and I think one of the things that we quickly did when we really understood that the intention was that Disney Plus would keep all of their movie content and there's some of their series content. So Grey's Anatomy now sits within the Disney Plus app. But what we did at that time, we were like, well, we know we're going to, we're not going to have some of the Disney movies, which are, incredible and really well loved by our customers. So we really, at that point, decided to sort of pivot into Sky Original Movies. And so, we're having great success with Sky Original Movies. We just had Jason Statham in The Beekeeper, Michael Mann's Ferrari, and then later this year we'll have Lee with Kate Winslet, who brought that to us and brought that to Julia Stewart's team, who runs Sky Original Movies. And then I guess actually just the one thing, just going back to, we were talking about Paramount, in that there's still a really deep relationship in terms of licensing content with the Paramount team. So with the distribution team, and that some of the shows that we've picked up in the last couple of years, so Poker Face, we picked up the Ryan Johnson series, which the next series will launch next year. But that's been a huge success for us on Sky Max. Really, really proud of having that on the service. So there's still quite a really deep licensing relationship with a lot of our key suppliers. And in fact, even Disney have come, there's been first run content that they wanted to sell within the market. So there is there's an element of sort of 360, I think, in that there was a pullback. And then I think there's a sort of opening up again.
Yeah, that's the sense that I've been getting in discussions, and I'm interested whether you think it's the same. Is that there is quite a bit more of a opening up of and kind of flexibility from the studios that have their own services to be much more open to third party licensing now.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. I mean, somebody like Amazon MGM, actually they have content that they're definitely selling first run within the market, because they have MGM Plus content that is available first run. There wasn't anything that we found. We're obviously tracking all of their content, but there hasn't been anything that sort of quite fit for us with those guys. And I guess the other thing is movie licensing with all of the studios. There's a real desire to see, the sort of evergreen library, have the sort of reach, and that relationship hasn't changed. We're in the process of negotiating a library deal with a service that also, with a company that also has a very, large streaming service. So that will continue.
And with kind of newer content that has maybe had a first window on a streamer, and then is kind of now available for licensing in the market. I mean, we're seeing that there's a lot of content out there that's like that. Is that something that is interesting to you, or is Sky with that type of content, which I guess is primarily scripted series? Is Sky all about the first run premiere window? Yes,
I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there. I think that's probably one of the kind of main points of difference, maybe from the likes of the PSBs. I think in particularly in the UK, where the key thing for us is really exclusivity and first run content. I think our customers really have to believe that the content they're getting from Sky, the big kind of scripted content pieces are first run. They have to believe that it's content worth paying for, and if they feel like, well, I've already seen that on a service that sits very much within the Sky ecosystem, then I think our customers really start to sort of kind of consider, are they getting value for Sky if it isn't?
Okay, got you. So I'm keen to try not to spend the whole time that we have talking about movies and scripted series, which will be really easy to do because it's such a interesting area. But can we just talk a little bit about some of the other kind of categories of content that you look after, because you're in the great position of kind of looking after kind of all acquisitions. So in terms of, say, documentaries, kind of the whole unscripted space, any other, kids, any other genres you'd like to highlight? What's going on there? What are the key challenges you're facing? What are the kind of any exciting new genres that are opening up that you're focusing on?
I guess, yeah, it's really, I mean, that, the working at Sky, as you said, there is a whole host of sort of channel brands that sit across all of the territory. So an area that, is increasingly valued by our customers is Sky Docs. And the quality of the documentary content, that we kind of commission as originals and also buy in, has really kind of grown over the last year in terms of that value perception by our customers. So we know that the audience is really discerning, and the things that we've picked up in the last sort of 18 months. Well, actually, no. I think Controlling Britney Spears was probably one of the first big acquired docs that we had a couple of years ago, and that really cut through. That was probably one of our highest rating docs. But another doc that my team picked up was Pete Doherty, Stranger in My Own Skin. Again, something that really resonated with our audience. Really good examples of contemporary, forward-facing topics that we know that our customers are going to want to watch. So, really timely, the Sinead O'Connor doc that we had last year, which she died literally the weekend that we were launching it. So it's an incredibly powerful doc, and we ended up working with the producers to allow them to have a theatrical release of the doc as well. But just an incredible example again of a doc that we actually bought from Paramount as well. It was a Showtime original. So that's in a competitive space, but one where the docs that we're picking up very much complement what we're doing, what Poppy Dixon's doing in terms of Sky Originals.
And would you say you get a good, is there a very good return on investment from those kind of shows when they work?
Yeah, in terms of our docs channel, considering it only launched a few years ago, and I can't remember the actual date when it launched. When you look at the sort of ranking of channels across the portfolio and how important they are to our customers, Docs is right up there in very high up within the top half. So
okay,
so really, yeah, in terms of, I think, it may not, they might not be the highest rating docs, but in terms of how our customers value the content is really, really, really key. Another area which people don't know sits within my team is stand-up. So we pick up a lot of stand-up shows from all the sort of beloved UK stand-ups, because we have a real wealth of comedians actually on Sky through all of our entertainment shows, like Nevermind the Buzzcocks, A League of Their Own. What's great is to also have a lot of those comedians that feature in those shows on the channel in stand-up. So we have relationships with all of the sort of big comedy suppliers like Avalon, Off the Curb, Chambers Management, and BJ management. And yeah, they really help to sort of complement the rest of the kind of entertainment content that we have on the service as Sky Originals that Phil Edgar Jones is in charge of running. And then another area is Sky Arts. So, the Sky Arts moving free to air a couple of years ago was, great for the profile of Sky Arts. And I think, Phil also runs Sky Arts, and it really is an incredible sort of testament to how Phil and his team run that channel, and that brand is all about bringing art to the masses. So there's lots of shows that we pick up to really complement things like Portrait Artist of the Year, and coming up this year there's Backstage the London Philharmonic Orchestra as well. And one of the things that we do is we really power the weekend from an acquired perspective with all of the big concerts and music shows and music docs. So we have a really strong relationship with a company called Mercury Studios. And we do a deal with them every year, and we pick up about 100 hours worth of content. And, it's everything from sort of Joni Mitchell at the Isle of Wight to Run DMC live at Montreux. So that's a really important relationship for us. And then the other thing we've done this year is working with the Grand Ole Opry. So we picked up a whole host of country music talent, which I don't think there's, so
Right.
that will be playing out over the year. So it's really, the acquired shows, while probably everybody thinks about us picking up all the sort of biggest dramas, there's actually a wealth of content that the team are responsible for picking up, working with all of the program strategy team around, what will help to complement all of our original content as well. So it's my team have a really varied role across the business. And you sort of touched on it. Alongside that, we also have Sky Kids. So work really closely with Lucy Murphy's team. And some of the big kind of kids shows that we acquire include things like Clifford, Miffy and Bee's Block. And we actually the channel went linear. We launched a linear channel last year. And a lot of the acquired shows, we picked up hundreds of additional hours of linear rights when we launched the linear channel. So,
So it was just on demand.
It was just on demand. So now,
we're
sort of going maybe slightly against
time and launched linear.
I know, against the grain. But I think Lucy Murphy and her team realised, and the business realised, actually, you want to put kids in front of a channel of really safe, beautifully curated kids content. And so, that was the sort of missions to launch the linear channel.
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing with all the excitement around Fast that linear as a concept certainly isn't dead.
Yes.
So I'm interested all those some of that content you're talking about sounded quite kind of British in appeal to me. How does the strategy vary across the kind of three regions in Europe? So kind of in the Italian speaking, German speaking.
Yeah, so there is elements of kind of commonality, but we have some common channel brands. So Sky Atlantic sits across each of the three territories, but the entertainment brands are slightly different. So in Italy, we have Sky Uno, which is really powered by a lot of formatted, by a lot of reality formats. So you'll find things like MasterChef Italia, X Factor. Italia is on Sky Uno, and then in Germany, Sky One. You'll find a lot of crime procedural shows, things like The Rookie sits on Sky One, but actually we have that in the UK as well. So there's quite a lot of common programming, but also some nuances in terms of the different channel brands. And so one of the things I haven't talked about, which is another brand that we have, Sky Nature, which sits across all three territories, and that channel is powered by a relationship we have with Blue Ant for their Love Nature catalogue. And so we have lots of hundreds of hours that we get through that relationship. And interestingly, actually, what I guess our German and Italian colleagues are able to do is pick up UK content. So Germany has a really strong relationship with the BBC, lots of natural history content that comes through that deal. And in Italy, a lot of the royal programming actually does really well in Italy, and a lot of the sort of period drama. So Downton Abbey, the Italian team have picked that up from NBCU. So there's common channel brands. There's some distinct brands, but there is common content. but there's also the kind of local nuances that are important, when you're thinking about the Italian and the German audience. And the really interesting thing in Italy, all of the sort of the highest performing Italian movie, all the movies on Sky Cinema in Italy, they're all local Italian films. They rate through the roof. And while the studio deals and the sort of big kind of commercial blockbusters are really important to that service, it's actually the Italian local content that really rates on Sky Cinema. And a little bit really the same in Germany as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, let's that's a good segue to just talk a little bit more about movies, because I was interested to get your views on how the whole windowing of movies is evolving, because obviously we went through during COVID, when cinemas were closed, that was a kind of opportunity for people to really kind of experiment loads, and I think some of that kind of experimentation has led to kind of new windowing models that people are using. But I'm interested to hear what you think about that whole topic.
Really interesting times in terms of movie windowing, and I think Sky actually, before COVID, we were really pushing all the studios to launch premium video on demand. So it was a project that had been gestating at Sky for some years before COVID. And then I think, COVID clearly had a massive impact on theatrical movies generally, but it also really accelerated that push to shorten the theatrical window. So I remember actually it was like one of the first weekends of COVID, and we sort of negotiated the PVOD deal for Trolls. Over 3 days, because Universal, they'd COVID hit, they'd spent all of their marketing spend, so they had to think, well, how are we going to make a success of, and bring customers to the Trolls that was out at the time. And look, I think Pete Levinson, who's the chairman of Universal Pictures, has talked quite openly about how much money they made on Trolls and what a great success it was, and generally actually the success of premium video on demand. And now we have premium EST as well, which has just generally has meant everything is slightly shortened, and so windows now to pay are earlier. And I mean, interestingly, Disney took a completely different view, and decided that everything would sit on Disney Plus, but actually in their sort of premium access window, they're now full circle again, and are now, our deal with Disney includes EST and VOD windows, and theatrical again is really important to that business. I mean, I think we all, I think it's been widely reported that, a lot of money was left on the table by a bit of the shortening of windows, but also putting movies straight onto a platform, or going day and day, is that, some of the studios have really struggled in terms of retaining revenue. And I think the other thing for Sky is the importance of the pay titles that we have, is that they are really famous when they get to our service, and that really is, the importance of that theatrical window is still really, really key. And then all those subsequent windows, because they help to, generate that hype and that the sort of value of those sort of big blockbuster titles. And one thing we've done in the UK is last September, we've sort of embarked on a new relationship with View Cinemas. So we have a Sky Tickets proposition on Sky Cinema, where we're giving away to all of our customers 2 View Cinema tickets every month, which is really adding a huge amount of value to the cinema subscription. But it's also, we're working with all the studios to use that proposition to also promote their theatrical titles. So we've always been amazing at promoting in all the different windows, and now we're right there at the very beginning of the theatrical window, using our Sky Tickets proposition to help push and drive people to the cinema to see studio films, which is really exciting, and we can see is offering real value to our Sky Cinema customers.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm guessing that View they're just really keen to try to get people back into the cinemas at the levels that they used to go to. Because I think I saw their CEO speaking a while ago, and that seemed to be they weren't up there at that level yet, and that's I think that's the challenge for cinema.
Yeah, no, I think
businesses in a lot of places.
There's definitely. The strike last year has not helped. It's, there will be a period there's probably a little bit of a sort of dearth of content actually in terms of it being strike impacted, which I guess none of us really wanted to see, especially post COVID. But that's kind of where we are. We just need the studios to continue to make in volume, the big sort of franchise titles, but some original content. And original stories. So Anyone But You, which Sony I think were really surprised at how that popped at the cinema, and was an original story. I mean, it's great to see the mix of content that we're able to bring to our customers across the Sky Cinema services, and also our transactional business as well is really important in terms of our wider partnership with all of the sort of theatrically releasing distributors as well.
Great. So you're going to be off to the LA screening soon. I think it's going to be an interesting time this year, coming out of the strikes, as you were talking about just a moment ago. What's your kind of expectation about the screenings this year? What are you excited about? Can you share with our listeners what you think is going to happen?
Yeah, no, look, it's always a amazing trip. To the privilege of going to each of the studio lots is, something that I think most acquisitions execs, love this time of year. And I think the interesting thing now is that we're going to be going to the screenings and not only seeing new content, but there's a number of shows that we're getting scripts, and we're having pitches from producers. So excited to hear about some of those shows. But in terms of the shows that we know that we're going to be seeing, there's a real mix of kind of limited series and procedurals, and sort of drama and comedy. I think the ones that sort of stand out across the studio. So we're excited to see Hysteria, which is a sort of a YA drama for Peacock, and it's set in it's a sort of like a teen horror, but it's probably a YA horror around a sort of a teen occult activity. So we're excited to see that one. And then Suits LA, which I think we may not see until a little bit later in the summer, but I think we'll see some clips on that, so that will be interesting. Paramount have a couple of on paper what looked like surefire hits with Watson, and that's coming from Craig Sweeney, who was the showrunner for Elementary. So yes, another, I guess, it's a revolving around obviously Dr. Watson as opposed to focusing on, I guess, the beloved Sherlock Holmes. This is more following Watson. And then there's a NCIS Origins, which is telling the story of Mark Harmon's character when he was like a new recruit. And actually Mark Harmon's going to be narrating that. So we're excited to see that. And then Sony have, again, that's another Peacock limited series, Long Bright River, which is based on a very well-regarded book about the sort of opioid crisis linked to the story of two sisters. And that's starring Amanda Seyfried. So looking forward to seeing that one. And they have another limited series with Jacob Elordi, who's definitely, his star is on the rise. And that's a sort of love story set in World War II. So we're looking forward to seeing that one. And yeah, it's really interesting because everybody seems to have something that on paper sounds interesting. So Lionsgate have got something from a limited series from Starz called The Hunting Wives, and that stars Malin Ackerman, who I thought she was brilliant in Billions and watched by many Sky viewers. And then Warner's finally got a show that's been on our sort of tracking list for some time, which is a show from J.J. Abrams called Duster, with Josh Holloway, who was also one of his Lost cast. So we're excited.
Right.
Yeah, we're excited to see that one. There's a sort of smattering of content across all the various different suppliers, actually. So yeah, we're excited to.
And you've obviously been in this acquisition game for a fair while. I have a lot of experience. When you go to the screenings, how often are you surprised about what you see actually kind of on the screen versus the kind of what you're prepared for on paper? So when something turns out to be really amazing but it didn't look that exciting, or this looks like a surefire hit, and then when you see it, the execution isn't great, and it's like, oh.
I think it's always really hard to tell with, say, something like comedy. But actually, last year when we saw Ted, it really was sort of laugh out loud comedy for that type of humour. And actually, that show's ended up being our biggest comedy in like 20 years, which is amazing.
Right.
I think something that's linked to if the ingredients are there and the showrunner has a sort of a pedigree, and look, sometimes we've had the opportunity to read scripts. I'm just trying to think over the years if something has sort of really surprised us. Then, gosh, probably the one show actually, and this isn't when I was at Sky, it was years ago when I was at Channel 5, I think, before even the Viacom days, and there was a show called Californication with David Duchovny, and people don't clap after many scripts, but everybody clapped after that one. And we had been lucky enough to see it before, and so we bought it before the screening. So it was a really, I suppose, lovely recognition of, we spotted something that ended up being a big hit for Channel 5, but also to see a large amount of, it's probably sometimes fairly jaded acquisitions execs all cheering in a screening room was quite a good a vindication of us being quite swift and trying to pick something up before the screening. So but yeah, I mean, I think there's clearly an appetite in the market with the streamers as well for lots of limited series. So I think everyone's sort of got a limited series, and those you do need to believe that there are enough hooks, I think, in those shows that are going to draw the audience in and also keep them engaged across the whole series. And actually, something, looking at the numbers for Tattooist, the engagement across the whole series is really positive and encouraging. And I think that's what, as well, when last year we bought Based on a True Story, and we were really happy with the engagement across that series, because you want everybody to sort of binge every single episode and binge a series, particularly when it's sort of limited. You need those hooks. So we'll definitely be looking at any of those limited series. Has it got enough of a hook to draw the audience in and think, I want to follow this story? Okay.
Katie, I hope you go to at least one screening this year where the show gets a standing ovation. But it sounds like that's a pretty rare event. So Thank you very much for sharing all these insights. It's been a really, really interesting conversation. I'm sure our listeners are gonna love it. I hope to get you back on the show at some point in the future. But once again, thank you very much, Katie.
Thanks very much, Toby. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Inside Content, the TV industry podcast brought to you by 3Vision. With decades of TV industry experience and real-world success, we know the ins and outs of the market like nobody else. To learn more about our TV consultancy services, head to 3vision.tv.